Hey everyone, welcome to Books, Brews, and Besties. I'm Kaylee.
I'm Jenny.
And we have our brew, Do You? And we are joined today by Stephanie, who is an audiobook narrator. So go ahead and tell us about yourself and your narration journey, and then we'll go into our questions for you.
Okay, so I'm Stephanie Nemeth-Parker. There's no TH sound. It's a Hungarian name. My husband's Hungarian. And I'm a trained actor. So I went to college and majored in theater and went to LA for a couple of years and then met my husband there and then moved to Switzerland. And I've been in Switzerland for 20 years, 22 years, actually. And yeah, I did some voiceover, like a little bit of voiceover work over there, but not really. And then like 4 years ago, my kids got older and didn't really need me so much. And so I thought, I love to read. This could be something. Let's give it a shot. And yeah, here I am 4 years later.
I'm just curious, since you just started like 4 years ago, you have a lot under your belt so far. So was it hard to kind of get your first book since you kind of just decided like, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to try this versus, I don't know, I guess others go with like big companies and kind of get help that way.
Exactly. Like, I feel like I'm kind of like, because I didn't know what I was doing, because I didn't know how other people did things, I just kind of did my own thing and kind of made it work for me. So, it was like I took a class about, how to be an audiobook narrator, right? And it was really not worth it. It was really like the worst class ever. And it was like a lot of money. And the only thing I learned out of it was ACX. Right? ACX.com, where to go to kind of find the books. And so I had like a USB mic. I've never done my own engineering, but I knew that I had to like have Audacity, I guess, on my Mac. And like, so I went to ACX and I made I made a profile. I had no samples. And then I just thought, okay, I'm just going to see what's out there and just do an audition, right? Just like to do one that I have it under my belt, that I'm all done, right? That I'm like, I've taken a step, got the book on the very first audition that I ever did. And I was like, oh shit, what do I do? What do I do now? So I happened to befriend a girl in the class with me who had kind of done like more voiceover stuff. And in America, I guess more people do it at home and by themselves sometimes, like e-learning and stuff like that. And in Switzerland, you go to a studio and do it, like in Zurich or wherever. And so she kind of helped me, she had helped me with the kind of to learn Audacity a little bit to get my first audition. But then after that, I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And she's like, okay, you've got to get a good microphone. You've got to have a good space and you've got to learn like a DAW. You got to learn a really good, digital audio workspace or whatever it's called, workflow. And so I like spaced it out over 4 months. Like I pushed the deadline out. I'm like, oh, it's summer and oh, I'm sick. And oh, because I was like, I had to learn everything from like scratch to producing my first book. And so it took me 4 months and it was like 80 hours on like an 8-hour book, royalty share that I've probably made, I don't know, 5 cents an hour on for my time. But it was, I loved it and I loved the book and I just kept doing it and I got my stuff, because I finally learned things as I went. So I knew I had to kind of give myself more of a timeline. And yeah, so that was my first foray. And that was 4 years ago. And I think I was like really part-time for 2 years. The last 2 years, I've really been full-time where I could make money and was like really doing it all the time. But I really work all the time. And so because I started ACX, I'm really insecure kind of about my abilities and stuff, even, like, am I good enough? I don't know. Like, I want to be better and perfect and everything. So I never really approached publishers until Natalie Naudis was like, Stephanie, why are you not with publishers? And I'm like, I didn't know. She's like, you're definitely good enough to be with these, so she like introduced me to my first publisher and kind of, made me feel confident enough to kind of reach out. But even then I didn't really do it because it's just hard to get in with publishers. I mean, I know people who are like, I'm only going to work with pubs, and that's awesome. That's great for them. But I can tell you that I am consistently booked out 6 to 8 months in advance because I work with a lot of indies. And like right now I have, like books 3 and 4 and 5 and 2 and 3 of series from independent authors that I have books through, I mean, I have books in 2025, but not full schedule, right? Like I'm trying to save space for publisher books because a lot of the times those books just have a better quality to them. I have some really great indie authors, don't get me wrong, but not all indie people are, you know, these amazing books where you kind of have a higher profile, if that makes any sense. And I think sometimes the higher profile, it helps you to get more books.
So with
That
that,
makes sense.
like, Crescent City, I know I've seen you post a lot about that. Is that kind of what you consider the higher profile ones?
No, no, that's like a fluke. Like I feel so lucky to even be on those books because, I mean, I've been with graphic audio for, I think, 3 years, like a really long time. And I think I got in right before they kind of stopped really accepting a lot of new people. It's very hard to get in there. But I'm the person who's very proactive. So I'm always looking, oh, what's coming up? Oh my God, Crescent City, emailing, do you know who's going to be doing this one? Because I'd love to be a part of it. I love all of her books, like those kinds of things. Like also with, what is it, Court of Wings and Ruin? Maybe I think I was in that one, Princess Brianna or whatever I played. It was like, I was proactive. Oh my God, I love Sarah J. Maas. Please, 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 please. I mean, for the not Game of Thrones, Throne of Glass. Sorry, I know, Throne of Glass series. So I'm like putting in, I want to be Aelin. Like I want to play like the main role. So, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to get it, but I'm like, I love her books. I've read all of them, please consider me kind of a thing. So I'm like, I will go on their website and see what's coming up and like find out who's casting it. And I will put my name in there, say, please consider me. That's all, because a lot of people don't even think about that. They just wait to get their email, you've been cast in this production. And I'm like, awesome. But, there are things that I want to be a part of. So yeah.
I love that. And also, I mean, since you have done other books in the same world, does that typically allow you a better chance? Does that matter at all? Have you noticed with all the books that you've done?
I think sometimes it can. Like I was like reaching out again because I thought I would love to play the Hind, in Crescent City, but in the series, but I don't know. I don't think she would cast me as the Hind because of course our dearest Lahaba is, but so yeah, like it's not great in the same series. Maybe something later down the line. I haven't read the third book yet because I'm just like saving it, but you know, or maybe if she thinks, okay, well, if you really want Aelin, then maybe you should not do anything else in Crescent City because people will associate you with that voice. I mean, I don't know. So
I'd be like, excuse me, I can do any voice.
yeah. Voice. I can. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I did have a quick. So I was stalking all your videos, and there was one where it's you, and I forget his name because I suck. And you guys were obviously vibing off each other. Do you typically record with another narrator when you have multiple roles in a book, or is it just pretty much you do yours and then they do theirs and like an audio engineer or whatever puts it together? Or do you ever get to kind of vibe with someone in person while you're doing an audiobook?
It depends on the production. Like I did, one of my first duets was with Greg Salinas for a Becca Steele book, and we recorded live together, and it was amazing. Like he was just like, I had no idea it would be this good, and I'm like, because you're really acting off of each other in the moment. You know what I mean? It just makes a little bit of a difference unless you have a really good director. There's a lot of really great directors at graphic audio. I mean, it's just me and the director, right? So like, I just recorded my lines for Sgaeyl for Iron Flame Part 2 for the graphic audio thing, and I got like 12 lines. I got nothing, but he was like really giving me the situation, what's happening, so I haven't read the whole book. I have no idea what's going on really, but he's like right there and he's giving me the lines before in a really good way to, so that's great. But like, for instance, sometimes if it's like sometimes I did a book under my pseudonym with Jacob Morgan, right? For Sarah Kate. And I love working with Zach. He's so great. I just love him to death. So I waited until he recorded all of his parts for that book. It's a duet. And I literally acted off of I just played his lines and I reacted off of every single line. So it takes more time, but like I'm that committed. I'm just, you know what I mean? As an actor, I like to be in that moment of what is he really giving me? Because I've heard some moments in other pieces, not necessarily with me, although I have heard some things like in graphic audio, I think, ooh, we're not really meshing. Like we're giving two kind of different levels of performances. And I just think, it would have been so great for, I would have done it again, So yeah.
I love that. I
Yeah.
because I mean, not that I could ever narrate anything because I would just laugh the whole time because I'm a mess. But I definitely could see where listening and then being able to go off of that
Yeah.
energy would be a lot easier than just doing the lines
Yeah.
in general.
And it's faster. It's faster to just do the lines, and read the line ahead of it and think of how they're going to react. But I don't know. I like authenticity as much as I can. And you don't always, look, even in movies, you don't always have some people are reacting off of a tennis ball because it's, Rocket in Guardians of the Galaxy. So, you don't always have somebody, but sometimes you'll have like they'll stay and do their lines for you, even if they're not physically there. So yeah.
I just wasn't sure if you had a preference for doing graphic audio versus just like a regular narration. But I guess when you're recording, you don't have to hear all that crazy stuff that's happening in the background anyway. So it's just like a regular recording, right?
Well, the cool thing about it is that you're just one or two people, right? So you can really, you're a little freer too. And it's really great because like the audio dramas really helped me with video game stuff. Like I recorded like 3 video games last year and I am recording 2 more this year. It's just the lines, right? So it's just the dialogue. So sometimes when you're reading as a narrator, the dialogue is sometimes affected by the rhythm of the read sometimes. And so it's great just to be one person and to be in that moment, reacting off to somebody and not thinking, like I was doing something on TikTok live last weekend or weekend before, God, I can't remember what day it is, where I'm crying as the girl and then I'm the guy at the same time. And it's just a lot of, it's harder back and forth. I mean, so many times I hear directors who are directing audiobook narrators, like actors who do audiobooks, like for the first time, they're like, oh, no, it's okay. It's going to be fine. It's going to be great, And then like 2 hours later, they're like, that is the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life, right? Because it's cool to play all the parts, but you are playing all the parts, and all of that emotion and all of those different people and characters and keeping them straight. It's not, challenging. It's challenging.
Is there an emotion that you struggle with narrating?
The kind of the sarcastic, deadpan-y kind of people that, or the really funny, like the super quick, like rom-com-y snappiness.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, do you know Amanda Stribling?
No.
Mandy, oh my God. So she's also an audiobook narrator. She's amazing, but she is just like, anytime I get like a rom-com audition, I'm like, Mandy, did you get this? Because you need to like let them know you need to audition for this. She's just super quick and super fast. And she's just so good at that. So that's what, I like to do it, but I just feel like I have to work really hard to kind of get all those nuances down quickly. Whereas she's just like, like she's just so funny and quick. And yeah, so yeah, I struggle with that, I think.
I'll let you. I tend to take over. Sorry.
No, you're okay. Do you have an all-time favorite quote that has stuck with you, or even a specific book that you've narrated?
Okay, here we go. Here we go. I wore it. Can you see?
It's backwards, and I am not.
I'm trying to read. Yeah, it's backwards for us, but
my friends are with me, and I am not afraid. Lahaba's last lines. Yeah. So that was like really when I recorded that, I had to stop because I was crying before I started the scene. And my director was like, Stephanie, she's not crying. I said, I know. I said, I know she's not crying. But I remember writing to Elizabeth Evans, who narrated that, like, because I think I ugly cried for about like an hour after I read that. I listened to her with that book and I was like, how did you do that? How did you not break down, And she was like, it was literally one of the hardest things that I've ever done. So I'm like, yeah, I can imagine. So that line for me, I just love so much because, like, I just love I love the idea. It always gets me, that kind of the sacrifice, also being a mom. I think you can really tap into that feeling of you understand what that would be like. You would give anything to save your family, someone who's close to you, of course. So yeah, so that stuck with me always.
powerful one too. We've got some people commenting about that in the comments. So Hannah loved the audiobook for Crescent City, and then Duke MO said that's an amazing line.
And it comes out. So it's like on the 29th of April, it comes out, the second part of the first Crescent City. So I'm like, I cannot wait to listen. And I just hope, it's like one of those things where you just like really hope you did it justice. You know what I mean? Like you really, but I know how I felt when I did it. And I know because the whole thing is Bryce is Kit Swan, who's a friend of mine, who's like, so it's like, when we talk, I'm always like, baby, don't be like that, like I'll talk to her in my Lahaba voice, and so when I was talking about, my friends are with me, I had her face, like I'm gonna start to cry. Like I had her face in my head, and it was just like, it was super real for me.
Yeah, I can see how that would be super emotional, especially since a lot of people, whenever they just read, they see movies and see everything in your head. So I can't imagine actually having, because you have to put yourself into that whole situation.
Exactly.
Hannah asks, what is your favorite genre to narrate?
It's so hard. I always say it's really difficult because people want to put you in a space, right? Like I don't really read romance books at all, but there's something about narrating them that allows me. I mean, I have an author that I narrate for, Claudia Bergoa, who I love, and I love her writing and every time it's like she makes me cry every single book. Like I'm like, Claudia, really? Again? Every single time, but it's always a happy ending. And I did a book called Where Coyotes Howl. And it was the most difficult book I've ever done because the last part of the book, it takes place in the early 1900s, kind of like when everybody went west and there's settlers and everything. And people were dying for like 3 days in a row. I had to narrate children dying, it was so hard that I literally had to take a day off. I was supposed to do all kinds of stuff. I couldn't work. I had to just like literally be in bed from like 4:00 in the afternoon on because I was like, I can't do it. The next day I had a romance and I was so happy because even if it's a little bit emotional, it's going to be a happy ending at the end. You know what I mean? So it's like, I like everything. I like a good story. I just like a really good story, period.
That actually kind of leads into one of the questions that I have for you, which is how do you continue with a job when you're just not mentally into it, or if you have a book that just completely destroyed you? How do you kind of compartmentalize and just go into the next one and just keep going after that?
I think you have to take a break somehow, whether it's even a couple of hours or, get out of the booth, maybe take a walk around the block, listen to some really good music that'll kind of bring you out of that. If you kind of have like a playlist for things, like I usually have a playlist for when I finish a book, a couple of songs I listen to every time. It's not easy. And the hard part is like, when you're having problems at home or in the or whatever, it's difficult to disconnect from that and put yourself in, like a happy romance or whatever, sci-fi book or, but you have to do it. It's your job. So you have to kind of just find a song that'll get you pepped up or again, get some air and do your job. I mean, sometimes it's like you're up till 1:00 in the morning because you can't get there for a couple of hours, right? Like it takes you a while till you can start recording and then you got to, push it, but you do it.
My dad would always say, just rub some dirt on it and continue. That was his famous saying.
I love that.
We've got 2 questions and then we'll go back into ours. So Duke MO said, do you ever use props or costumes to envelop yourself further into the character?
I don't. I used to kind of pull like actors' pictures to kind of have there for people. And then I found it a little bit limiting because I would kind of, then it's like, well, that actor in what role am I thinking about? Or, so I just kind of go from my own thing and like what I do. Basically. So I don't really use any props, but I am if you see any of my videos, you'll see that I'm always like this. So I'm like really, expressive in the moment of,
You are. It's so fun watching you.
Whatever I'm doing.
I hopped on a couple of days ago and you were doing a spicy scene and I was like, wow, what is going on? Because I heard just, one word and I was like, wait a minute, I wasn't ready for this. I was like in my car, I had it on my like car speaker and I was like, turn this down for a second.
Yes. Well, I try not to, but sometimes it sneaks up or like those books I got very last minute and I had to do them before I left. And it was like hard It was hard to finish those before I left because I was like going till like midnight, and it was a disaster. Not a disaster. It was not a disaster. They turned out really well. I mean, I'm happy with how everything was, but like it was hard to get through. So that's why I did TikTok, and I didn't get a chance to read them all the way through. And I normally prep every book, but sometimes in a romance, you kind of, if no one's like, in Spain, going to Spain or London, your accents are going to be pretty basic. You know what I mean? So as long as you kind of remember who's who, you're pretty fine. But yeah.
And then Elijah Reeds asks, is there ever a book you narrated or listened to and wish you had gotten a different character?
You mean like for graphic audio, like as in a character, like I wish I was that character? Oh God, yeah, I'm sure. Who in particular? I don't know. I mean, not because the person did a bad job for sure, but sometimes you think, ooh, I want, like for instance, like if I don't get Aelin in, what is it called? I'm going to keep thinking freaking Game of Thrones. Throne of
Mist and Fury, is that what you said earlier?
A Throne of Glass.
Throne of Glass.
Throne of Glass, yeah.
Throne of Glass. So like if I don't get Aelin in Throne of Glass, like I would love to have what is the witch's name in that? Like there are parts that I would love to have, and I don't know that I'll get any of them, So there's always like that thing of like, yeah, I wish. Like again, like I would love to have played Nesta, right? And I didn't get approached for that at all. So,
Everyone
yeah.
on how to say Manon.
It's Man in Black Beak.
Like we got
Man in Black. Like, I would love to play her. I mean, again, and then she's got such a great arc, right? She's just. I don't know if y'all read those, but
I haven't read Throne of Glass. I've read ACOTAR, and then I listened to Crescent City on audio. But I haven't done the entire series, and I have not done Throne of Glass yet because that's a whole other commitment.
That was my first series from her. So yeah,
we definitely need to hop on the train. I know.
I just did ACOTAR and then the second book too. I just like last week I finished those two, so I need to do book 3 now. But
yeah,
I'm behind on those. I was like 4th wing and From Blood and Ash. I was like, that's what
I know it's definitely a topic that's been going around in the entire narrator world right now. And I'm not super educated on it. So if you could talk about how AI is kind of affecting narration, kind of just what that's taking a toll on in the narrator world, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. No. So, it's cheap right now. People are doing it for free because, I mean, like Audible is, I think, basically doing it for free. Put your book into audio, right? Because it's expensive to do it. And the problem is that maybe you get by the first couple minutes and you're like, okay, this isn't that bad actually, right? And you're listening to it, but as you continue on, like it's just wrong. It's just things are read incorrectly, and I know it's only going to get better. But I think that authors are taking. I understand they want something in audio. I don't think it's the right way to do it. I think there are other options. I think you can find someone who's not as expensive, maybe who's just starting out, or, I would consider royalty share if you're going to really help market the book, and I'm here to help market the book. But a lot of authors want a book in audio, but they don't want to like market for it. And so why would I do royalty share on a book that I'm literally not going to make any money on, right? They've already made their money. And if they're not going to market it, then I'm just going to spend hours and hours and hours and hours recording something that I will, that will always belong to them, right? At the end, because only for 7 years it goes on Audible. And then, it's like, so it just, there are other options, I think. And I think the bad part is that I think authors aren't seeing the bigger picture. I think that it's weird to have a machine narrate a human story, and I can't imagine, like I said, you see me, I cry in every book that if it says she's crying, I'm usually crying before it says she cried or she has tears in her eyes. And who wants to hear an AI cry? Which is where it'll be eventually, right? They'll have the snip, they'll have like the emotion, and it's just, so for me, it just rings so untrue. And I think that it's just opening the door for people to become accustomed to an AI voice, and then they'll become accustomed to an AI writer, right? Because then it's just, then people are going to be pushing out books written by AI. There's going to be no authors, and it's just going to be taking away from their jobs too. So I think allowing AI into the arts is the wrong way to go. Like I already feel bad for all the artists who've been just screwed for so long because they were the first group, right? They were the first. I mean, all of these things that are coming out now, the cool little AI filter, I mean, that's all taken from all these artists that have put their stuff on the internet over the years. I mean, none of it's real. None of it belongs to AI. They've all used our human art to create their art, right? So it's just, I just think it just needs to try to, I mean, AI is going to be great in helping in other things in other ways, sure. But I think just don't bring it into the creative realm, because I think it'll absolutely affect the creativity of humans going forward. It's a real worry, you know. They already know that, you know, Macmillan and a couple of other publishers are using AI on some of their other titles that they say they would never put into audio anyway, right? Like that's the whole reason that people are doing it. That, you know, they say, well, we're not gonna pay for that anyway because it's so expensive, so we're just gonna put some of our other titles into that. You know, or does that allow them to make a little bit of money on that to pay human narrators for other stories? That's what they say. I don't know. So, you know.
Yeah, I just don't trust anyone. So even if they say that, I'm like, but that just opens the door, I feel like, in my head to where you can like get away with little things until it just becomes something bigger. And
100%, 100%. And you know what? I think it's going to have to just be a choice, right? Like you can either choose to eat at McDonald's or you can choose to eat someplace that's nicer, right? And I guess it's just, I don't know. I mean, why? I don't understand. Like, why would you pay for an AI narration when Alexa can read it to you on your, right? Can't you, like, doesn't she like read, doesn't she, I mean, like, for people who, you know, like for visually impaired, 100%, like go that, you know, have that and everything. But I just don't understand the other side of it, I guess, you know.
Yeah, no, I had heard about it first. Actually, I think it might have been one of your videos where you just kind of touched on it. And then, because I had obviously seen it on Instagram where like cover art and stuff like that was being created with AI, and the book community just rioted and was like, no, actually, shut it down, or, you know, has attempted to. And then I started to hear how it's going into the audiobook world and everything else. And I'm like, yeah, if you let it get into one art, it's going to get into all of them.
Yeah.
Kind of take over, which you're right. I just don't think that you can connect the same way with, definitely not Siri. Siri pisses me off more than anyone in the entire world. So I don't want her reading me a book. She does. I hate her. I can't.
Oh, do you have any advice for anyone who may be venturing into narration themselves, or even for indie authors who may like their books to be narrated?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, like a lot of times my lives are either like the past few weeks have been kind of like either what is she reading, or it's like two questions. What is she reading? Or how can I do this? Right? This looks so cool. This looks so fun. And to everyone, I try to say the same thing, basically. It is a lot of work, right? Like it is, excuse me, it's a lot of work. I think I'm the exception. I think I work every day. And literally from the time I get back after Readers Take Denver, April 22nd, until June 7th, I do not have one day off. I literally will be recording every single day of that. I've been very lucky to get a lot of books in from publishers and other people like last minute. I want to, you know, and I have so many great authors, also indie authors. I'm like, okay, I can squeeze that in. Just yes, I can take it, you know, kind of a thing. I'll do it on the weekend or whatever. But I think it's, you know, and it's also that has allowed me, you know, to, you know, make good money doing this. But I know people, that said, I work a lot. I don't go the route of I only work for publishers. You know, I'm not all foo-foo. I don't really care. I love my job and I want to make a living at it. And to do that, I have to, you know, work more. And I think that it's a lot of work. It's very saturated right now. There are a lot of audiobook narrators, to be honest. I think when I started on ACX, there were like 100 and something thousand producers, which are narrators, right? And when I went last time, like maybe even a year ago, just to look, I haven't used ACX in maybe 3 years, there were over 1 million, right? So there were over 1 million people trying to do this. I think there's a lot of stuff online. I tell everybody to go to narratorsroadmap.com. It's a great resource. Karen Cummins has put all kinds of things together. For audiobook narrators in particular, you have to have a very quiet space, more so than any other VO. Because other VO, you can, you know, you're doing like 30 seconds at a time. You can get away with stuff. But I'm in my studio. I think I go down like about 1 or 2. I take a break after like 2 hours, and then I go back down for two more hours. Then I take a break, and then I go down for 2 more hours. Like I'm literally in there for like at least 6 hours a day recording, and then I'm doing all my other stuff too. So it's just a lot of work. If you love reading and you don't mind being by yourself for a lot of the time, and you are really responsible about being doing your work. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm on, like I get a notification. I'm like, oh, what is that sparkly thing over there? And I stop recording. I'm like, oh, what is that? So like sometimes I'm seriously have trouble to concentrate because I'm like, my work computer is my recording computer. And so you have to be disciplined, which I'm not always, which is why I'm in the booth for 6 or 8 hours a day. But I say, if you really love to read and you're okay to be by yourself, do it. If you like hard work and you want to be your own boss, do it, because I can say it's a lot of work. It's hard, but I would rather love what I do and it be a hard thing than doing another hard thing, like standing on my feet all day as a waitress, right? It's also hard work and not loving what you do. So, but just don't think it's going to come fast or easy. And just know, I know people right now, seasoned narrators who have more books, a lot more books than I do, who don't have anything on their calendar. Maybe have one book. I'm booked solid through August.
That's amazing.
So
would you say the biggest hurdle then is just...
For me, I can tell you my biggest hurdle is that I live in Switzerland. But again, I live in Switzerland and I've made it work, right? Like people have told me, I've been at an event in LA and we were talking and they're like, well, so where in LA do you live? And I'm like, no, I live in Switzerland. They're like, but I see you all the time. They're like, but I see, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh yeah, well, but because I would tell anybody, you need to be where the people who can hire you are. And you make the sacrifice. And if you can't, then you recognize that you're probably not going to get as many books from certain people. And you know what I mean? You have to put yourself places. I mean, my flights here are really expensive. But I think, okay, that's like a half a book. How many books do I have to do? But I'm going to be there. I mean, like, look, Readers Take Denver. The reason I did that one this year is because I have 14 authors that I've worked with that are going to be there. So for me, even though I'm a signing narrator, I don't know that anybody knows me or wants me to sign something. I mean, that's awesome. If they do like me, oh my God, I love that. But I'm not thinking like, I'm going to sign me some books because, that's who, I'm not that person. I'm like going to go see the authors that I've worked for and just I brought everybody, if y'all saw my stories, I brought a bag of chocolate and candy and cookies from Switzerland for every single author that I have worked with to say thank you for hiring me and, let them know that I want to work with them again if they want me, that kind of thing. So like, that's my whole agenda.
Switzerland chocolate's probably so good too. Chocolate's probably next level.
It is. And I'm not bringing things that you can buy here. You cannot buy anything that I'm bringing in the US.
Yes, special. I like it. We do have another question. Is there a genre you wouldn't do or you'd be scared of doing, or you'll do anything? Anything, or are there some that you're like, no?
None. I do anything. Vivian really does anything, my pseudonym, but my only thing for Vivian is non-con. That's the only thing that I won't do. I won't do non-con. I've been sexually assaulted before and it just doesn't do it for me. It just, even like when it's like, dub-con, if I read it, like I will ask for the scenes that are like that and look through it, because sometimes there's like that, it's a fine line, I think. And having been a sexual assault survivor, then I'm like, I feel like I'm probably for myself, I would know a trigger or for myself. And so I just think, so I'll just do it like, book by book basis. But I really I like everything. I've done nonfiction, I've done memoirs, I've done like maybe like a cookbook. I wouldn't do a cookbook or something like super boring nonfiction, but like I love science. I love like quantum physics and like, I would do anything really, all kinds of stuff.
And actually, when you were talking earlier about the gaming, I never even thought about that because obviously, yeah, you have to voice those characters too. I never thought about that either.
Yeah.
So is there a role that you've played that you're just really proud of that you got it? I know you've talked a lot about Lahaba and Crescent City, so I don't know if that's your top one or if there's just one that you're really proud that you accomplished, whether that be your first one ever or...
You mean like a character like from graphic audio or like a book?
Either. Surprise me.
Honestly, like Lahaba, dream. Sgaeyl, dream, right? Even though she doesn't have a lot of lines, she's like just a badass. I just fucking love her so much. There's a lot of graphic audio parts that I've played that have just been really empowering. But like honestly, there's a book that just came out on Tuesday last week called Bless Your Heart that takes place in Texas, where I am right now, Southeast Texas. And it's a horror book, but it's like Southern horror, but like funny, and about like 4 generations of women who run a funeral parlor and, kill the undead when they raise back up. It's so well written that it was just it was a dream to narrate and such a pleasure. And it was just so much fun that I loved it. I loved that book so much. And the cool part is I feel very validated because she just sold it for a series to be created into a series by the same people who did like Handmaid's Tale, Yellow Jacket. So like really, it's so good. The characters are so, so good. So yeah, so Bless Your Heart, probably. Yeah.
We like to take notes during these interviews just so we can go back and like look up different things that you said. So sorry. I will ask, since you've like done a little hint of Lahaba's voice for anyone who hasn't listened, would you give us a taste of how you voice Sgaeyl? I just curious what the dragon voice sounds like, because the only dragon voice I have in my head is what's his name?
Marcus, who does the Terran impression or whatever. I just reached out to him. I'm like, we should do a Terran Sgaeyl thing. And he's like, do we have lines together? He's like, I haven't really read the book. And I was like, I don't remember, actually. We probably don't have that many, but I feel like we had an exchange between Terran and Sgaeyl. And so we're working on something. So it could be possible. But so
need viewers in the live moment to add opinion. We'll be there.
So Sgaeyl is just down here, right? She's just very in the deeper register. And, what were some of my lines? I forgot what I said, kind of like, be careful when you talk to him, right? She has no patience for Violet, right? So it's always very much down here. And, and then of course, if you don't know if you've read Iron Flame, but I'd posted my last line from that book was like, oh my God, right? I forgot what it is. What is it? I know. You cannot, right? Like, you cannot. I chose you, right? When like he makes that decision, I get chills because I know that part right there. But it's like, so yeah. So it's funny because, like I can go, like I either play here super high or I play really low, right? And like very like warriors and dragons and things like that. So yeah.
And legit, that's how I pictured her voice in my head. Wasn't like Terrans where it's like growly and stuff. No, it was very like regal, I guess is how I would describe it.
Right? That's what I was going for.
Yay! Matched so well that I was shook for a second. I think I had goosebumps.
I'm just thinking of like you two like playing. Oh my God, would be amazing.
Just would be cool, right? I gotta find a section where we talk.
We're gonna hunt that section too, and just be like, it's this page.
Yeah, literally after this, we'll message you and be like, we found it, the perfect parts.
Perfect. Well, the funny thing is that he was like, well, if we don't have any lines together, he goes, why don't you just do Violet? And I'm like, oh, I could do Violet, sure. I can make her appear a little bit higher, right? Could do something like that. Just to have more lines of the two of them together, but
I will flip out. Someone did a comment and I liked it. Yeah, Elijah said that you guys need to do the Fourth Wing Dragon like spinoff.
We should.
Spinoff for you guys. So since you said that you like reading, you're a reader outside of this, do you find that you get more invested now that you narrate the books, or do you still get more invested just reading it and kind of like getting shut down and enveloping into the story?
Okay, so like I literally don't read anymore outside of because if I'm not because I'm so busy, because I'm so stupid that I book myself so tight, I don't have time. Like right now, I have 3 books to read before I get back on next Monday after next. Like, because I have to start recording. So I just have all my free time is just reading the next books that I have coming up. That's sadly. But like, again, luckily though, I'm doing some really cool books that are coming up, so.
I hate it for you, but I also love it for you at the same time.
But again, like, look, I just read a book called The Wren and the Holly Library. That is so good. If you like romantasy, it's like, it's I just narrated it like right before I left, before these last 2 books came in. And it's funny because I was at the Barnes and Noble here in Southlake, Texas, near like Grapevine, near Dallas, right? And I was talking to my stepmom about, showing her the books that I narrated, and that this one I play Sgaeyl, because I was like, these are like different. So I only play one character, and then there's like a girl standing behind me. She's like, "Wait, what'd you say?" And I was like, I voiced Sgaeyl, and the audience, she's like, "Oh, no." So it was like the best moment ever of like my life, because people were like, because then, like, of course, someone who worked there was walking by and was like, "Oh, what are y'all talking about?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm an audiobook narrator." And I was also like taking pictures of like me with my books, like, cause you do like the books in the wild, right? Like, what have I narrated? And I was like, wow, I'm kind of like racking up the books that are at Barnes and Noble. And so we started talking, and then other people came by, and we're talking about like also like, Vivian's books, like Praise for Sarah Kate. And so they're actually having me to come in on Tuesday to do a social media posting from their Barnes and Noble. They're going to have a table with all of my books on it. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. But it was like really cool to have like people be like, "Oh my God, oh my God, you're Sgaeyl. Oh my God, you're Lahaba. Oh my God, that's so amazing. That's so cool. Like, I love those books." And I was like, I just felt like I felt like a celebrity. I was like, "Oh my God, what is happening to me?" It's just the sweetest moment. Like, and really I love that about booksellers. They get so invested in the books, you know what I mean? And then in all aspects. So not only just the physical books, but the audio books, and that they're doing this for me. It's like so cool. It's just amazing, like I love booksellers. Love them. The best.
It would be cool to set up at different bookshops, and because I mean you do live readings and stuff too. So even if it's just like, a mock of it or something, just doing it inside of a bookstore, just to highlight you and what you do, but also that's a really great way to bring people into maybe books that they've never heard of before, since you do a lot of indie authors. So even if, they know you for Sgaeyl or Lahaba, you could be like, "I've also done these too."
Exactly. Well, I mean, that was the whole point, was like went in there to see if my new Bless Your Heart book was released. It was on the shelves because it's Texas, and I thought maybe they'll have it. And, and then I was talking to a bookseller, and she's like, "Well, I'm going to do a little bookshelf blurb for you. Like, we're going to like highlight that book for you." Because I said it was just so good and so fun. And so it was really, really cool. So I'm thinking about, because of this reaction, I'm thinking about when I always come to the States for the month of July to Philadelphia, where my sister and my mom live. And I thought about contacting the local Barnes and Noble, let them know I'm going to be there. And if they want to do something, like you said, like if they want me to come in and read anything or something, it'd be kind of cool. So hopefully, yeah.
I would freak out if I ever saw anyone, and Dallas is not that far away either from us.
True.
To take a road trip. I forgot to tell you that's where she was going to be, because we're on the same time zone right now too. But
so I'm in Houston at the moment, but I'll be back in Dallas tomorrow.
That
Readers Take Denver. Readers Take Denver is like the reason I'm here in the States, and I just made an excuse to see my dad and spend some time with my family down here. So my little sister and her kids. And so it's been awesome.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us during that. We'll go through and do our last questions for you. For everyone new that's hopping on, if you have any questions for Stephanie, she's an audiobook narrator, please put them in the comments and we'll get to them before we end our live interview today.
What character would you want to have over for dinner?
Out of all the characters you've played.
Okay, well, like honestly, like the Wren in the Holly Library that I just narrated, like the main character, Wren, she's super cool. She's like a thief, and was like raised on the streets and stuff. Like, I'd love to have her over. And then also like kind of the major love interest in that book, Graves. He seems pretty freaking cool too. So I would love to have those two for dinner, to be honest. But it's like recent, right? I mean, I could also say like, God, but anything in the Sarah J. Maas universe, right? Like I could pick anybody from her books.
It's like, because it's so fresh. It's so fresh in your mind. Everyone's talking about Readers Love Denver in the comments, and I've never heard of it before you mentioned it.
No, it's a really cool. I think it's like 3,000 people that are in attendance. And it's just, an author event with a lot of romance and thriller authors. So I have thriller authors that are there and also romance authors that I've worked with. So
do you ever attend the like a Polycon, or next year we're going to be going to Once Upon a Con. Do you ever go to those book conventions?
I you know, I didn't even realize that a Polycon was the weekend after Readers Take Denver. Otherwise, I would have just done that. And like, you know what I mean? Like I would have gone there because I didn't even kind of recognize that it was what it was. And there's no narrator centric anything, right? So we have panels that we're doing. We have like meetings with fans and things like that at Readers Take Denver. And so a Polycon is nothing like that. But I signed up for next year to attend Polycon as a narrator. So I'll be there next year for sure. But my voice will be in a Polycon this year. There's like a giveaway that I did with Marcio Catalano. I've got to post it on TikTok. I forgot. I'm part of a multicast that he did as a free giveaway there. So I forgot the author. I forgot her name. I hate that.
I found out about Apolicon too late.
Yeah.
And I'm extra mad because I love Jennifer L. Armentrout. I love her so much. So next year I really want to try and go, but there's a Facebook group where it's the In Search of tickets, and I've been looking and I haven't gotten any tickets yet. And obviously it's kind of too late now because it's next week, but next year I want to go so bad. So maybe we will see you there next year
together. Exactly.
And then what made you want to start doing the TikTok lives while you narrate? And what kind of process do you have to go to with the authors with that? Because I can see a lot of people comment during your lives on it. So I figured might be a good place to get it all out here.
So like normally, I don't know what happened the last couple weeks. Like normally I have like 5 to 10 people who are hanging out with me. I'm not like a big draw. You know what I mean? It's not like people are like I normally have 300 people. Like the last 2 times I've been on, I had at least 300 people. Average about 100, but like for a long time, like 300 people in there sitting with me. And it was like, what is happening? I had to get moderators. I'm like, I don't even know how to do this. Like, what's happening? Like, this is crazy. But I do it because I usually do it for accountability because, I was talking about like, a notification comes in and I'll like, oh, what is that? But if I'm on with y'all, if you guys are watching me, then I feel responsible to record because it keeps me more focused. Like I don't check emails, I don't do other things. And so it really helps my productivity in the long run. It's not, it's my accuracy is not as good, but I can honestly tell you that I feel more connected to my script when I have an audience. And maybe it's because I'm an actor, but I can say that, it's only my indie authors I'm allowed to do that with. Maybe sometimes for Podium, you can do stuff for Podium. I don't have a book with them right now, but I can tell you, like an author that I work with, I've done like 40 of her books. She doesn't care what I do. So I was on, and she didn't know that I was on, but she doesn't care. Doesn't really, it's always like, do whatever you want. If it's going to sell more books, maybe that'll work, right? I didn't tell her. I mean, I told her, but I was like after the fact, right? And I said, hey, how are the sales going for this audiobook? Because I had like 300 people in there with me and they kept asking what the book was and blah, blah, blah. And she goes, I've had like really good sales on this audiobook. I'm kind of surprised. It's a re-release. And I'm like, well, I had these, this is what happened. I did. And I was like, she's like, oh my God, are you serious? And she goes, you can always do all of my books on TikTok. I'm like, I don't know if it will always be like that. I said it was probably a one-off or whatever, but I think for me, honestly, I think people, you don't want to do the whole book because, you're giving things away, or if it's too far towards the end, people don't know what's going on or whatever. But I think it's a great way to expose people to new authors, to people they've never heard of. Maybe they don't, there's so many authors out there. How do you read everybody or know what's good or whatever? And, I'm really giving you behind the scenes and you can see how it is. And the scenes are usually emotional that I'm doing because I'm always doing, romance books for that basically. And I don't know. I think it's really for me to kind of stay on focus, stay on track. And I think for me, performance wise, it really helps. Not that I'm not always like this, talking and crying or whatever. I don't know. It kind of helps.
Now, I was curious if authors could tell with it, because I feel like anytime someone does a TikTok live for anything, it hooks people. Because especially with the way that you narrate and other narrators that I've seen on TikTok, it's just so cool to see that behind the scenes and, see that it's not perfect the entire time. Like you're going to mess up. You're going to have to like talk to yourself and be like, no, how do I want this to go and stuff. And it's just really cool to see and get to experience with you. And I think that draws people. And then obviously you get hooked with the book. And I was
Yeah.
always wondering if authors could tell if there was ever like highs and lows to where they're like, you know what? I think this is actually helping. Because I could see it.
Helps. So it seemed like it helped. I have to say, I was really happy. But like, honestly, I think like, I mean, I had my author up for the last live I did, my author was on there with me. And she got like she got like a whole bunch of new followers from that, from me reading the book. So it was good. And she's brand new. So it was really good for her. And she was so happy that I did it. She was like, yes, 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 go live. Please, 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 So she was super sweet, super, super cute. So yeah. So I think it helps. I mean, if nothing else, it's, she got some more followers, people to maybe give her stuff a try. And so,
I've definitely went and bought a couple books because we talked to Amy Hutchins and I hadn't heard of most of the books that she's done. So I went and bought a couple, especially ones that said that had like hilarious scenes or whatever. I was like, I want a good laugh, so why not? And we were just looking at all the list of books that you've done before this to see what we wanted to grab and read and review and stuff. So I definitely think it helps. TikTok Lives just has a way of grabbing people and getting them to like go and wander into a different direction than they might usually tend to go into.
I agree.
And then, sorry, you've seen Callie like come and interrupt a lot. She's been a menace, but I do have one more question for you before we go, if you have time for it. How do you pick what books you're going to do? Do the authors have to send you a sample, or do you read samples of what the book is going to be about and then you say, yeah, I think this is going to be a good pick for me? Or do you have just good relationships with the authors that you've worked with for so long that you kind of already have just the steady stream?
I just have a steady stream of people who want to work with me. I was really thinking like, I have to prepare myself that I'm not going to take every single, indie book. I'm not going to look for any. So I haven't like searched for books, like for things to narrate. Cause I was doing that a lot 3 years ago, two years ago. Like I would be like on Amazon and looking up, people who didn't have an audiobook and reading it, see if I kind of liked it. And then I would like send them a sample, and like haven't done that in like 2.5, 3 years because I just don't have to. This sounds like boastful or whatever, like knocking wood, but I was prepared to like, okay, I'm going to save space for publishers. I'm not going to go after books. I'm not going to go after authors. And it's going to be okay to have space. It's going to be okay to not have a week with a book in it. And that has not been the case. So it's like, I feel really lucky that it's not been the case, but it's hard because I'm very competitive with myself. Right? Like I'm really like, I have to be working, or, I grew up really poor, and I've worked since I was 13 years old. So like to not have work is like, it's like stressful. And oh my gosh, my calendar has to be full, when it's okay. I don't have to have a full calendar always. So it's been hard for me to kind of trust. But me trusting has allowed other books to come in. So yeah, so I don't really look for stuff. I do have sometimes books will be given to me from a publisher. And a lot of times, there'll be auditions for things like, I wrote to Saskia Marival the other day and I was like, girl, leave me some books next time because you got the last 2 books we auditioned for, like just joking around, things like that, because, your voice isn't right for every book. And I think an author really has. So it's like, you really have to know that you just can't take things serious personally. Right? It's like people have in their head a voice that they hear for their character. And if you're not that person, then so be it, Like I think I wrote to an author the other day and I was like, thank you so much for letting me audition. I love what you wrote. I know I wasn't the right voice for this character, but keep me in mind for any, another book if you have, because I really enjoyed your writing. Like for certain authors, I'll do that if it's, if I really did enjoy the writing. So, because, I get it. I'm not going to be right for every single character. I'm not going to be right for the 6 foot tall Amazon, badass, whatever, always, or anything. Yeah. Anyway.
We do have a couple authors that are listening right now. Do you have a specific way that you like to be reached out to? Is it on TikTok? Is it just via your website? If they ever want you to narrate one of their books, is there a best way to contact you?
Yeah, I think Instagram is really just DM me on Instagram, or like my website is also, I get emails from there. So that's also my website or Instagram. I'm not on TikTok that much because I never really get a lot of views. And so I just think, okay, although now things have changed a little bit and I should do more, I know, but I think Instagram and my website would be the best place to reach out to me for sure.
correct me if I'm wrong, but your website and everything is on your link tree in your bio on your profile, correct?
It should be, and it's literally just my whole long ass name.com. So StephanieNemeth-Parker.com. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
But yes, you can go to her link and her bio, and it's there because we were just checking it out before here. Thank you so much for hopping on with us today and for chit-chatting. We really appreciate it, and I hope that you enjoy your time with your family.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. This was so much fun. Thank you so much.
We're going to go check out all of your books now.
I know.
You gotta listen to Bless Your Heart. It's so good. And you know, the whole thing too, I tell people is like, look, I listen to a lot of books from my library, you know, like there are really great books in the library. And look, I was listening to, what did I just put in for? Something that was like, you are number 300 or 700 in the line, right? 2 weeks later, the book came up for me because everybody else was listening to something else. So they were like, pass. You know what I mean? And so don't be afraid to like get on a long ass wait list at your, you know, on Libby or your library, because I mean, I can't afford to buy everything, you know? And so I think it's worth, I mean, not everything's on there. I get it, but I think it's definitely worth to check out, you know, the library for sure.
But if it's not on there, request those books, people.
That's
Help
it.
the authors out.
That's help the indie authors out. 100% request books. I did that with something that I had narrated, and I had a couple other people do it, and it came up. They bought a copy, still something, right? And so 100% request the books. Thank you for reminding me to say that.
Everything helps. Everything helps. Only because we have a good friend of ours on here, Ellen Cole. She just published a book. Actually, it's Kingdom of Vines and Silence. It's so good, but you know, we asked her what's something that would be helpful, and she's like, honestly, request it at your library. She's like, it's such a simple thing, but it helps so much, because a lot of people that you don't think of do use like Libby and other of the library apps, and it comes up and shows on there. So
that's a great thing. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to do that more. I'm going to talk about that more, about requesting books from the library for sure.
Yeah, we've been trying to ever since we had the conversation. It's like, yes, okay, ingrain this in my brain so I don't forget, because it's such a good one. And I actually have never had a library card in my life, and I just got them last week so that I could start requesting books. Simply so that they're there in existence.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's the best.
Yeah, so we all got to do our part.
Exactly.
But anyways, well, thank you so much. We super enjoyed this, and we will definitely be watching you still on all your lives. And go to your Instagram, because I don't know if we're following you on Instagram, but we will after this.
Perfect. Okay, cool. All right. Thanks so much.